And there's a lot to be said as well about the two clubs that are going head-to-head with. Aston Villa, they've not really been in this situation before, fighting for a top four. Spurs have been there, done it many times now, and come over the line many times as well in these big games. You cast your mind back a couple of years ago, Arsenal at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where it was a massive top four clash. Many years ago, the Man City game, and there have been other games in there between then as well. So I think the experience will stand in good stead as well this weekend.
How do you feel in terms of these two teams, right? Maybe apart from since before Martin Yell took over, maybe before Redknapp was in charge when Tottenham got that Champions League football, they're all very similarly situated, weren't they? Very similar sized clubs, both clubs as well. In terms of trophies, historically won a lot, but recently not so much. Villa, for the last decade or so have been in the wilderness, absolutely nowhere. But it wasn't that long ago. Remember, under Martin O'Neill, they were challenging us for top four. They were quite a good team. Now they're kind of back up there. For you, do you feel like if Villa finish above us this season, that really puts them back in that conversation of challenging that top six now as being a big six club, or do you still feel like they've got a lot more work to do to get into that conversation?
I think they're in the conversation. I think they've proved it this year to be in the conversation. I think Unai Emery was a clever addition, a clever managerial appointment for them. And I think since all that money was pumped in before Steven Gerrard joined the club, Steven Gerrard was a bad appointment, but I think the club was still progressing in a positive way. It was a bad managerial appointment, but they were making good additions to the squad. And I feel like once sacking Stevie G, bringing in Unai Emery, that really solidified them to go of them going in the right direction. And I think when you're looking at them in comparison to maybe in Newcastle, I feel like they're ahead of Newcastle in terms of the development, even though Newcastle got Champions League football. Looking at the way they're going this season, I kind of put them on the same level as a Newcastle, to be honest. And you're looking at the way the clubs are progressing. I still put Tottenham a bit ahead of them, though.
Only a bit?
A bit, yeah.
Well, you're talking about a team who's never played Champions League football before.
I know that, but you're looking at...
did they do it in the 90s maybe? Maybe they did in the 90s, but definitely not since then.
But you got to look at the way they're playing this season and the progression that they've made. Spurs finished 8th last season.
Yeah, but Unai Emery has a history of doing it over a short period, but is this going to be a long-term thing? Do they need to, is this a moment for them to really capitalize on, or is it going to be a flash in the pan? I think it is going to be a long-term thing, and I actually think they're here to maybe not stay forever, but definitely for the foreseeable future. They've pumped a lot of money in since the new owners have come in, and similar to Newcastle, maybe not to the extent of the riches that Newcastle have, but I feel like because of the money that they've pumped in, the players that they've brought in, they are going in the right direction massively. And look, I don't think they are on the same level of Spurs in terms of stature, especially when you look at what Spurs have done over the last 10, 15 years, or whatever it may be. But I do feel that they're creeping up. Yeah, I do wonder whether they're going to be consistent top six, challenging for the top six, year in, year out now, or is this going to be just how I remember Everton had that period where under Moyes where they were.
I think it's different.
Where they were challenging top five fairly consistently, and then they have had a massive drop off. I mean, what makes it different though?
The investment that Villa have put in. Everton didn't really have that investment.
With FFP now, so
yeah, look, that's a different situation to talk about. But I think right now, when you're looking at their squad, not exactly an old aging squad.
No.
I think they've got really good players there, and if they can keep adding to that, I know they got the FFP situation, but if they're forced to sell, then obviously that changes the narrative. But right now, if they can keep adding to what they have, I think they're onto a really good thing. Do you not agree?
I agree they're doing fantastically. I'm just not convinced. Look, don't get me wrong, Villa are doing brilliant. They're having a great season. This is off the back of an unbelievable second half of last season as well. You got to remember when Unai Emery took over, I think they were in a relegation battle. They were 16th, I believe, and he dragged them to 7th place. With I think if you just isolated the results of Villa just after Emery took over, I believe they were third in the league or something like that. Ridiculous. They were brilliant, but I don't know. I'm looking at their team, and I think there's been an overperformance by a few players this season, which I don't know how sustainable it is. Not necessarily Watkins, but a lot of the midfielders are chipping in with a lot of goals. How sustainable that is. People like Bailey, how sustainable is his form this season? I know he's a good player, but is he a player who's going to be able to perform like that year in, year out kind of thing?
But I think last year with Bailey was a massive underperformance.
Yes, but that was like a couple of years of underperformance, if you know what I mean.
Was last year not his first year?
I think...
I thought last year was his first season at Villa.
Right. Maybe is last year's. Maybe you're right. But yeah, last year was it was an underperformance from him.
Because in the Bundesliga he was smashing it for Leverkusen.
He was good.
Before that.
He was good. He was again known as an inconsistent player, but he was good. I don't know. I think they're heavily reliant on him and Watkins right now. Luiz has chipped in with a lot of goals, like a lot more goals than he usually chips in with. Like people like McGinn have been chipping in with goals and stuff like that. I think they're a good team, but I'm not looking at that team and thinking that team is going to challenge the top 6 year in, year out. I think they need to really progress. There's going to need like some major investment in the summer.
Season.
It is his third season. So I think they're going to need like major investment in the summer. I think they're probably going to need a lot more than Tottenham. I'm just looking at Tottenham. I think they're a younger team. I think there's higher potential with Spurs, even with that.
I don't disagree.
And so I think as well, like I wouldn't be surprised if teams like Chelsea and Newcastle are back above Villa next season. I wouldn't be surprised about that.
But I still think they'll be in the conversation, though. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know. I think they need to really capitalise and finish in the top 4 this season. I think that's so important for them. If they drop back into Europa League next season, I don't know. I feel like that would be really demoralising considering the year they've had. And I feel like this is more like a moment they need to really take advantage of. And I feel like if they don't, then I feel like they might start regressing again.
It depends who they lose this summer, in my opinion, because there's been a lot of talk about Douglas Luiz. The amount he's come on this season, I think, has been nothing short of spectacular. They've brought in Yuri Tielemans, kind of reinvigorated his career as well, who I think is having a really good season. Watkins, Bailey, Konsa, who I think is a really good defender. Pau Torres, who's come in and hit the ground running after a few dodgy starts. I mean, they've got some really good players there. And if they can keep adding to that, I don't see a reason why they can't stick around in the conversation for maybe the top 6 spaces. I think top 4 consistently might be a bit too much to ask, but top 6, I don't see a reason why not. And you also got to look at the Moussa Diaby as well. I think he's been a bit of a letdown. Maybe not a letdown, but not reached the heights that maybe...
he had a great start. And then
but he hasn't reached the heights that maybe what people thought when he first came in throughout the whole course of the season. But I also envisage him to have a much stronger season next year after a year behind him in the Premier League. So they've actually got really good players there. But I just feel like they need to add to that because outside the first 11, maybe they are a bit short.
Yeah, and I don't know if they will, like to the level they need to. That's what I feel. And as much as I love Unai Emery, as a manager, I think he's a great manager. I should say, don't love him. I don't love him that way. But I think he's a great manager. I think he's had such a great career. I do generally think he is more of a cup manager. Generally, that's how he usually.
Is he proving that wrong this season?
Maybe he is. But I need more than a season to kind of ascertain that.
Where did they finish last year? Was it 7th?
They finished 7th, and they're improving on that this season. To be fair, I don't know. But in terms of like them putting themselves in the conversation of like being a bigger club than Tottenham, like what do they need to do?
Bigger club than Tottenham. They need to do a lot to be a bigger club than Tottenham.
Not just one season.
No, one season doesn't make you a big club than Tottenham. Albeit they finished above us last season. They might even finish above us this season. What would you say? They finished above us 2 years in a row. I still think that Tottenham are a bigger club than Aston Villa, even if they finish above us again this season. I feel like the future looks a lot more brighter at Tottenham than at Aston Villa. We've got Ange Postecoglou at the helm, progressive football, the stadium, the money that we can bring in, spend through that. We're nowhere near the FFP borderline, and they are. So I think that when you're looking at the futures and the trajectories of the two clubs, I still feel Tottenham, as much as we finished below them last season and potentially again this season, it's been a letdown, but I still feel the trajectories of the two clubs. I think Spurs could potentially go and fight for the league title over the next couple of years. I think Villa's ceiling's probably top 4 at best.
I just find it interesting because, not so long ago they were maybe on the same level, but obviously the trajectories of both clubs have gone in wildly different directions over the last decade or so, and now it's tough. But if you're a Villa fan, isn't Tottenham like that? You feel like that's your competition, right?
Tottenham is the benchmark, I think, what they're looking at. right now.
Yeah, but you feel like that's the next progression, isn't it? Like you want that
to fight against Tottenham.
That's where
that's where they're at right now. They finished above us last season by a space. They're 5 points above us right now in the league table. So their fans would be saying, well, we're already on that level. But look, that is our match preview. We kind of diverted there a bit of a debate about Aston Villa, but let us know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts? Do you feel like Tottenham and Aston Villa are on the same level playing field at the moment? Let us know in the comment section below.